And so welcome everyone to the August monthly meeting of the Arlington Democrats. I'm Jill Cayazzo, and I'm delighted to be coming to you here today live online. This is, I think, our third meeting online, and we are old pros at it at this point. Recognize that the stay-at-home order has been lifted, but we are taking a cautious approach, and we are continuing to have our meetings online until further notice. And so excited to be here tonight with you virtually. So welcome once more to Resisting While Social Distancing. I want to welcome all of the many folks on the line. We're at 170 participants so far, so this is a blockbuster meeting. I think there's many precinct captains, steering committee members, and a lot of new folks on the line, so I want to welcome all of you. We're really excited to have you here as we are facing the most important election, I think, of our lifetimes. We need everyone's help. It's an all-hands-on-deck situation, and you are going to learn tonight about many ways that you can get involved in the effort to defeat Donald Trump and the toxic GOP. So welcome to all. I do want to, however, cast a special welcome to our newest elected official in Arlington. Takis Karantanis was the winner in a landslide in the July 7th special election. That's not my language, that's from Arl Now, but couldn't agree more. We're delighted that Takis was able to pull off that tremendous victory. Very excited to see what he will do on the county board. He certainly has big shoes to fill. We feel Eric's loss every day. We know, however, that Takis is the right person to carry the mantle forward on issues that were so important to Eric. And so just really excited and wanted to offer you, Takis, I know you're on the line, the opportunity just to say a few words coming off the heels of that tremendous victory.
Thank you, Jill, and thank you Democrats in Arlington. This is the victory of everybody, your victory, most and first and foremost, and specifically Jill and Maggie and John and Phoebe and Itzy and Grace and Arlene and Kathleen and Nancy and Mary, all the Marys, and so many more, and my wife Lydia, who made it possible for me to run and to run such an amazing campaign under such unprecedented circumstances. Oh my God, I don't know if this still works. My screen has just disappeared, but anyway, I hope that you can still hear me.
Yes.
I was very humbled by the result. I was very humbled by the enthusiasm and the collaboration and the the sweat and work that was put in this campaign by everybody. I feel it was a very emotional moment to start immediately after the election, after the swearing in, to start with a board meeting, which I took from the office of Eric Gottschall. I have to say I'd had to pause for quite a while to just let it sink in and to realize how high this responsibility is and how much energy it is deposited in this candidacy and then in this work in office. As I've said many times, I'm in for the long haul. We have a lot of work to do in Arlington. We have to rebalance Arlington. We have to make space for everybody to have access to the decisions that we take for the entire community. It was never a better moment to really reassess and reevaluate how democratic values are really translated into real policy in Arlington. Specifically now, as we fight against the COVID pandemic, and as we try, me and my colleagues, very hard to make sure that our community emerges out of that as a stronger, more resilient community. So again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you, thank you. This door, my door, will be always open to all Arlingtonians, but also specifically to Democrats. I am very thankful for all your emails, all your input, and all your enthusiasm and participation in the commons here in Arlington. So onward. Jill is absolutely right. The next step is indeed November, and that's really very critical. She said it's the most critical election of our lifetime. I believe that. Yes, it is. So my job among many other things, will be to help our party to win this election and to win it big, in a very big landslide, because landslide here is really critical. We have to send a very strong signal to the entire nation that we need a different government and we need to reclaim our country and our republic. Thank you.
Well, that's terrific. Thank you so much, Takis, for being willing to serve. We're really delighted in the outcome of the election, and I want to join you in thanking every single Democrat out there who volunteered for your campaign. You proved, guys, that Arlington Democrats will fight in every single election. We will take nothing for granted. You could throw a pandemic at us, you could throw a special election at us, and we will show up and we will fight. And I think that was a really important message to send. But just couldn't be happier with the outcome and look forward to seeing what you're gonna do, Takis, for all Arlingtonians. So thank you. Now, you mentioned all of our great volunteers who helped in the campaign, and one of those folks was Detta Kissel, who was on the next slide. She didn't know I was putting this in here, but she did ask me to promote the Vote Blue masks, which you see her modeling there as one of our socially distanced poll greeters. We have extras left over. So if you are interested in one, they are at the address that's listed on the slide, and we'd love for you to wear them around Arlington. It is never too soon to get the word out there that you should be voting blue in November. So if you'd like one of those terrific masks that Detta is modeling there, please stop on by to that depot and grab yours. And let this be a warning to everyone who suggests slides that if you make a suggestion, I will put you on them. So
can I just say one thing? Sarah McKinley is the person making these masks, and she's made a substantial investment of time and money in making these masks. So we should all say thank you to Sarah McKinley.
That is absolutely right. Area Chair for Center East, Sarah McKinley. That's true. So thank you so much, Detta, for pointing that out, and Sarah for making the masks. It's just an awesome undertaking, and so please grab yours so we can help to spread the word. Okay, moving right along to our flash social media call to action. For those of you who are new to the Arlington Democrats, I always like to emphasize that we are very much action oriented. So we are always looking for ways to make a difference in our community and in elections. And we like to be action oriented in our meetings as well. So what I would ask for you to do right now to help Democrats is to take out your phones or go to your favorite browser on your computer, head to Facebook, and look for the @ArlingtonDems page on Facebook. When you get there, you will see pinned to the top of our page a post that looks an awful lot like what you see on the screen here today. What I am asking you to do is to find the post and click share, and share the post into your network with a fun, tagline of your own, such as, "I'm coming to the John Lewis Memorial Weekend of Action in order to register voters in Arlington. Join me," because that is what we are promoting this week, or this month, I should say, with respect to our social media call to action. As you will hear later in our meeting from our excellent voter support and outreach teams, we are putting together a weekend of action that is focused on voter registration. We are doing it in honor of John Lewis, a tremendous civil rights icon who we very sadly lost this past month. We think that there's no higher honor that we could show him than by doing the good work that he did so much throughout his life, and that is ensuring that everyone is out there voting, just making sure that there is access to the polls and that all voices are heard. So we'd greatly encourage you to come out. You'll hear more about what we'll be doing, but it's a voter registration focused weekend. And I think everyone can get behind that. So if you wouldn't mind, please share that post into your network so that folks know that this is the weekend, that there will be so many voter registration opportunities out there, as well as a few other opportunities to get back to the community. And this is the way that they can engage. I think it's a message that everyone will be happy to hear in their, see on their Facebook feed. And hopefully I have discussed this long enough to give you the opportunity to go ahead and share that post. And I really do look forward to seeing you at the Weekend of Action, which we will be hearing more about a little bit later in our meeting. Now, while you've got your phones out or you're at your favorite browser, I did want to do this little PSA. So you may have seen that the governor of Virginia today released news about a new notification system that will help to track COVID cases in the Commonwealth. And the governor is asking folks to load this application onto your phone so that you can help contribute to the effort to track cases so that we can slow and ultimately stop the spread of this terrible disease. So just wanted to give you this information. The website is covidwise.org. Head there, check it out. Hopefully download the app so you'll be able to help contribute to the effort to really to get us through this this public health crisis. Moving right along. Okay, so as I'm not sure that we've talked about this at the previous meeting, but we have established within the steering committee an equity and inclusion task force to help to look at Arlington Democrats' internal processes as well as our events to make sure that we are being as equitable and inclusive as we possibly can. And so this is an initiative that is just getting underway. These are of course topics that we've always considered, but it struck me that with the current moment that we are in, that this is something that we should have a special focus on. And so we've established this task force in order to do so. One of the suggestions right away coming out of the task force was that it would be helpful to share some information with the Arlington Democrats community about microaggressions, what they are, how we cannot do them, so that we can be more inclusive and welcoming to all folks. And so on that topic, they suggested a very cute, informative short video that we are going to attempt to watch here today. It's just a couple minutes long. I managed to do this on the steering committee meeting. For those in steering, you'll have seen this before, but it's never, I think it's good content to see again. And we'll see if I can get the video launched. Give me a second.
For people who still don't think that microaggressions are a problem,
Oh, you're so well spoken.
just imagine instead of being a stupid comment, a microaggression is a mosquito bite.
Ugh, it's a compliment.
Mosquito bites and their itch are one of nature's most annoying features. But if you're only bitten every once in a while,
No, where are you really from?
Cleveland.
sure, it's annoying, but it's not that big a deal. The problem is that some people get bitten by mosquitoes a lot more than other people. I mean, a lot more. Whether it's on a date,
Oh, your English is so good.
Excuse me?
going grocery shopping,
You know, everything happens for a reason.
I'm just buying apples.
commuting to work,
So when are you gonna have a baby?
watching TV,
We have to keep the Redskins name. It's part of our culture and history.
or just walking down the street with your partner.
I couldn't even tell you were gay.
Mosquitoes seem to pop up
Do you
everywhere.
know John? Shopping advice. I have share too.
And getting bit by mosquitoes every goddamn day,
Can I touch your hair?
multiple times a day,
So pretty. You
Can I
make
touch
your
it?
hair up.
Please? Can I please?
is fucking annoying. That makes you want to go ballistic on those mosquitoes, which seems like a huge overreaction to people who only get bit every once in a while.
It's just a mosquito bite. Who cares?
Just another angry black woman.
Of course, beyond just being annoying, some mosquitoes carry truly threatening diseases that can mess up your life for years.
Astrophysics? Maybe you should try this challenging major.
Ow. My dreams.
And other mosquitoes carry strains that can even kill you.
He looked like he was up to trouble, okay? I felt threatened.
So next time you think someone's overreacting, just remember, some people experience mosquito bites all the time.
You're all so exotic. Wow.
And by mosquito bites, we mean microaggressions.
Okay, so hopefully you were able to see that.
You do it every year,
Hold
but
on.
it never gets old. Pack.
Okay, are you guys with me? Are you still with me?
Yep.
All right, great. Okay, terrific. All right, so that bit of technology actually worked. So, folks, I just hope you will take that lesson to heart and think about how we approach folks within our community in this meeting. And I just think it's really a very helpful reminder. So, thanks very much for listening to that. We will be looking for more content coming at us from our Equity and Inclusion Task Force shortly. Okay, moving on to our next agenda item, our voting items. So I'd like to take us through a couple of the sort of less controversial ones before we get to our main event, which is the redistricting constitutional amendment discussion. Our first voting item, as we typically do at our meetings, is to elect or appoint new members of our precinct captain ranks as well as our steering committee. This is something that we're always delighted to do, hopefully every month, is to welcome new folks into the leadership of the party. So we are excited this month that we are going to be electing into Arlington Precinct, which is our very first precinct in Arlington. Jonathan Dromgoole, who is also a terrific leader of our Latinx caucus. And so we're just really excited that he's also joining precinct operations as well. In addition, Mark Fiumara is stepping up to be our precinct ops deputy vice chair for MUBs. What's a MUB, you ask? It's a multi-unit building. So these are our high rises and garden apartments, basically the apartment buildings and condo buildings, which so many Arlingtonians call home. We have a special focus on those to make sure that we are able to reach voters there, which can sometimes be challenging. Finally, voter support vice chair for voter protection, Diana Gordon, who's been on the voter protection team for a while now, is stepping up to be the vice chair role. She'll be supported still by Jill Birdwhistle, who's been in the lead for a while on this team and will still be really having very valuable contributions on the team, but Diana is going to be taking on the vice chair role. So with that, I am looking for a motion to elect the precinct captain and appoint these two folks to the steering committee.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, so what are we looking for? We're going to do this vote less formally than we're going to do the redistricting constitutional amendment vote, because these typically are not controversial. If you wouldn't mind going to the participant section of the Zoom meeting, there you should see a red and green button. And Maggie, if you might be able to help me out here, because the way my screen is looking right now, I actually can't see very much. So if you wouldn't mind providing the instructions to the team about how to vote, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you open your participant window, at the bottom of that window on the left-hand side, you will see a green circle with a check mark or a red circle with an X. Please click either one of those to cast your vote for this. And I believe that passes, Jill. Yes.
Great. Thank you so much, Maggie. All right, moving on to our next voting item. This is a letter to Governor Northam in support of essential workers. So our Labor Caucus, which really is doing tremendous work, they've been hard at work developing a letter urging the Commonwealth to provide additional support to essential workers during the pandemic. A copy of the letter is linked in these slides, which we do upload to our website after the meeting. All voting members of the party were sent a copy of the letter in advance of the meeting, as is our practice. The letter very briefly outlines a number of measures that the caucus feels is important in order to support our essential workers during this very difficult time. Safe workplaces, job protections, paid sick and family leave, pandemic hazard pay, healthcare coverage, rent freeze, and wage replacement during unemployment. This letter passed steering, which recommends approval of the letter so that it can be sent to the governor's office so that we can demonstrate our support for essential workers. I am looking for a motion to approve the letter.
So moved.
Jill, would the letter be phrased in terms of coming from ACDC as opposed to the labor?
If it passes, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so I heard a motion and the second, is it?
Second.
Right. All right. I do want to pause here if there's any other questions that there might be about the letter, to give you an opportunity to ask them. Hearing none.
You're asking for voting members. Could you describe that, please?
Sure. The voting members consist largely of the precinct captains and the steering committee members. Also, Arlington elected officials would be considered voting members. Certain members of the state central committee would be who live in Arlington. So there's a number of different categories of folks who are voting members of the general body. And if you are not on mute, it'd be helpful if you could go on mute.
What is the definition of essential worker for this purpose? Do you?
So I think the question, what's the definition of an essential worker? And the letter casts it quite broadly. So in very intentionally looking past police and that the sort of public safety workers that we would, I guess, normally sort of go to in your minds about who's essential, but also looking at the folks who are, preparing our meals, delivering groceries, things like that, who really have demonstrated just how essential they are, certainly our healthcare workers during these trying times.
Grocery workers.
Okay. Hearing no other questions, I am going to call the vote. So again, Maggie, if I can ask you to please help me out here.
Yep, same instructions as last time. Please make sure that you click either the red or the green button. I'll give you another minute or so. Looks like it passes.
Terrific. Thank you so much. We'll let the Labor Caucus know, and they will take care of the mechanics of getting that over to the governor's office. Thank you so much. All right. I think that moves us to our next and last voting item, which is the redistricting amendment, which is such an important issue that it merited its own section in our agenda tonight. And so just before I turn things over to our Sergeant at Arms, just wanted to give a very brief introduction. So Arlington Democrats typically, but not always, takes a position on constitutional amendments and other ballot measures that appear on the Democratic sample ballot. And so that's something that we have done over many years. So there's nothing new that's happening this year, but we do need to go through our process for determining what position, if any, we will take with respect to the constitutional amendment on redistricting that will appear on the November ballot. So we are going to take a vote, which is how we normally decide our positions for the Democratic sample ballot. And we gave a month's notice of the fact that we were taking this vote, and we hosted 3 educational events on this issue to make sure that voting members and the general public were informed about this important issue that you're going to hear lots about from our various speakers. As is our norm, and I believe also required by our bylaws, the way we take votes is that first steering considers an issue and then recommends a position that goes to the general body for the final vote. So as I mentioned with respect to the labor letter that we just talked about, steering recommended adoption of that. I believe it was unanimous. So that is just our normal process for how we deal with voting items. In this case, steering met last week, had a very robust and civil discussion that I'm hopeful we will recreate here. And the vote that came out of steering is what you see on the screen. It was not unanimous, but it was a very strong majority in favor of taking a position, and again, a very strong majority in favor of opposing the constitutional amendment. So that is a recommendation coming out of steering. Tonight, we start anew. It is a slightly different voting body, and so we will again have a discussion that will be led by our Sergeant at Arms, Jackie Wilson, to whom I'm going to turn things over for conducting our discussion. So with that, Jackie.
Thank you so much, Jill, and thank you to all the Arlington Dems present this evening. As Jill mentioned, the conversation last week was civil and engaging, and I think educational in many respects. So the way we're going to conduct this is we have a sign-up sheet that I will now post in the chat box, if I can figure out how to do this properly. So it should be there now. And you can sign up. So we have 2 questions, as you'll see on the document. So the first is, should Arlington Democrats take a position on this? And the second is then what that position should be. So I would just mention that on last week's discussion, we had very few undecided. We had some people who started to sign up on the undecided side, and then didn't. So don't be shy to do that, because again, the purpose of this, as I've said in some of my correspondence, as I see it, the most effective, productive way for us to address decisions is to deliberate and weigh those decisions. I'm personally not a fan of debate, but this produced a lot of feedback, and I listened to many of you. So what we're going to do is just basically have a facilitated discussion, which means that I will keep the time and keep my mouth shut unless there's some reason for me to intervene, and I don't anticipate that because we're all interested in learning a lot about this issue. So on that note, what I will do with the speaker sign-up sheet is basically go from one line on the spreadsheet, one position, and go straight across, and then come back the other direction. So starting at the top. So we will go for 30 minutes on the first question. It's 7:30 exactly, so that's convenient. And the first speaker appears to be Paul Ferguson on question number 1 on the yes side. So Paul, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Jackie, and thank you, Arlington Democrats. I am speaking in support of the Arlington Democratic Committee taking a position on this constitutional amendment question. I'm currently serving as your elected clerk of the Circuit Court. Before that, I served on the Arlington County Board. But the way I got there was I started as a precinct captain. One of the things I'm most proud of is having won Precinct of the Year, along with my 2 other precinct captains in 1989, 31 years ago, in Abingdon Precinct. I also was honored to serve as vice chair for precinct operations in the early 90s. I didn't do half the job that Carol Fontaine does for us now, but it was exciting to work with the entire Democratic Committee to elect Democrats. And during that time, we didn't lose a precinct in any general election. We did lose a special election 1 year, unfortunately. So why should we take a position on this? For those of you that are precinct captains that have worked at the polls year after year, you know that people will come up to you and say, what's the position of the Democratic Party if we have not taken a position? And in my experience, whether it was as a precinct captain or then later as an elected official, there was times that we didn't take a position. And I said to the person that would ask me that was voting, it really doesn't matter that much either way, if it passes or it fails. But this redistricting amendment is probably one of the most important things that is coming before us in my recent memory, possibly ever. If this constitutional amendment passes, I can assure you it will be with us for a long time. And I think we should take a position on it. I think those that are for this amendment, I really understand why, because all of us are for nonpartisan redistricting amendment. So once again,
I'm sorry, your time is up. Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much. All right. So our next speaker then going across the top will be Herschel Cantor in the no column. Herschel, you have 2 minutes. Please begin. Herschel, are you muted?
I should know better.
There you go.
I think it would be very bad for us to take a position because it's going to be extraordinarily controversial with Democratic voters and with Democratic volunteers. Our senators all supported it, all Democratic senators, in fact, and all supported it. All delegates for Arlington, at least, voted against it and are against it. I think it would be, the newspapers are going to be for it. There's the League of Women Voters is for it. It's going to be very difficult to explain one way or the other our position. And many volunteers, I think, if we take a position, no matter what it is, will be upset. And will not want to hand out sample ballots, which at one point I thought we weren't going to be handing out, but I suspect properly distanced and with masks, we probably will be handing out sample ballots. So I think that that we may lose some volunteers in this crucial year, and I think it would be better for the party to pass on this and not take a position. And in fact, I don't know what my position is, so I'm going to have to make up my mind between now and when I vote in October or November. So I think the party should stay out of taking a position. I don't think it's difficult to explain to a voter if they ask why we're not taking a position as a party. And an individual standing there, if they have a position, can tell the voter.
Thank you very much, Herschel, for your input. Again, trying to keep to time because we do have a lot of speakers. So we have no one in the undecided column at this time. So I'll go back the other direction. So the next speaker will be Chris DeRosa on the no side. Chris, are you ready?
Yes, I thought I was in the same list as Herschel.
Yeah, you got to go to.
Jackie, you're muted.
Sorry, I thought the gestures. So I said I would go across this way, down the row, across this way, down the row, this way. So that's the direction we're going.
Oh, okay. So you might have two people in the same position talking after each other?
Yes, that's true.
Okay, so you want me to go ahead? Okay. Hi, I'm Chris DeRosa. I'm a precinct captain in Lexington Precinct. Like all of you, I'm a true blue Democrat, have been for most of my life, which is pretty long. You may know that I'm an ardent supporter of the constitutional amendment that would establish a bipartisan, citizen-led redistricting commission. I firmly believe that this will be a giant step toward ending partisan racial gerrymandering in Virginia. But as much as I support the amendment, I'm here to ask you to vote no position on question number 1. I truly believe that the Arlington Dems should not take a position on this amendment or the sample ballot or messenger. It's obvious that there are passionate people on both sides of the amendment, many who strongly support the proposal and many others who are opposed. So it has been discouraging that there have been so much sometimes rancor in insults and accusations thrown at different sides. Unfortunately, it hasn't been a civil discussion, and I don't think it's a good look for the Democrats. It's not healthy. We are all Democrats, but we seem to be battling among ourselves, and this could hurt us because we've got a really important election coming up in November. If the committee chooses to take a stand and put either yes or no on the ballot, there's going to be a division and possibly anger no matter which side wins. And that's not going to be a win for our group. We've got to kind of remain united and fight together for November. We've got to regain control of the White House and the Senate. Let's leave the sample ballot blank next to Constitutional Amendment number 1. Let's take a neutral position, allow the voters to decide. We do need to educate them. That is very true, and both sides can do that. So again, I ask you to vote no on question 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. All right, so you pointed out something important, and that is that I would have 2 speakers from one position in a row if I continue with this process. And so what I am going to do, because we had 2 no speakers in a row, I will have 2 yes speakers in a row, and then I will go alternating yes, no, and then add in undecided if we have someone speak on that. So I'll start with Josh. Matt Royer, please. Matt, are you ready?
Yeah. The duty of the Democratic Party is to keep the members and the voters in our base informed on the issues and policies that affect the everyday resident in our area. And it is our job to keep those same people informed when it comes time for elections. This is not the first time where we have been asked to take a stance on a constitutional amendment, and it won't be the last. Most recently, we had to take a position in 2016. And if we hadn't, we could have very well had so-called right-to-work laws permanently in our Constitution, and our work to repeal these laws would have been made much more difficult than it is currently. To leave the position of the party as it is voted on by its members tonight off the ballot would be a disservice to the Democratic voter in Arlington and would create confusion amongst our voters on which side the Democrats truly support. We cannot have 2 competing Democratic parties working on this issue while campaigning for Democrats up and down the ballot. This year is far too important for us to continue infighting on this specific issue from now until Election Day. I encourage you all to take a position tonight, end the discussion of which side our committee supports, and have that position carry on the Democratic sample ballot on November 3rd. Thank you, and I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you, Matt. All right, so following on, as I mentioned, with a second yes speaker, that would be Josh Kaplowitz. Josh?
Thanks, Jackie. This is Josh Kaplowitz with Arlington Blue Families. I'm a relative newbie to the Arlington Dems. I got involved right after Trump's election, like many of you, and So I feel like I have a real sense of, you know, the fresh activist energy that's been brought into the party. And I can tell you that to a person, everyone is incredibly passionate about fair districting. And I think that everyone in this call is incredibly passionate about it. And so I think that the new activist energy is going to be really sort of left high and dry if the party just kind of punts and doesn't take a position here. So I think that it's sort of incumbent on us to sort of acknowledge all of the energy in favor of fair districting by taking a position. And by the same token, I think that this activist energy is going to hold our elected representatives accountable if we do vote yes and there is, or vote no and there is backsliding and they go back and try to pull a Maryland and gerrymander Virginia. So and to the point about the Democrats being divided, 77 to 16, you know, in the steering committee, I'm just not sure we're that divided. You know, it's hard to get consensus on much of anything, but 77% supporting something seems like a pretty heavy majority. So that seems like a bit of a mandate to take a position. So thank you.
Thank you. And okay, so we've had our 2 yes voters in a row. That brings us to the no column. Chris Buckeye, you ready?
Hey everybody, appreciate the time. My name is Chris Buchheit. I'm a precinct captain in Dawson Terrace. Just as a response to the previous speaker, respectfully, I don't necessarily see this as punting. I think this is a recognition that this is a controversial issue, and I think we'd be giving respect to the voters by not taking a stand and recognizing that we don't necessarily want to influence the voters by taking a position. And additionally, the point was already made, but I think it warrants kind of repeating here. Several volunteers, myself included, have voiced to me serious apprehensions with passing out sample ballots with a position that they don't agree with. I think we could potentially run into some volunteer issues precisely at the wrong time. There's clearly not a consensus on this. I've been steeped in this argument for a couple of weeks now. And I can say I think we're potentially creating divisions within the group at precisely the wrong time. You know, instead of arguing about this for a couple of weeks, we could have been talking about how to address the absentee ballot question, how to address COVID during November, get out the voting efforts during a pandemic, et cetera. And I think if we take a stand, these divisions will continue if we choose to take a stand on it. Instead, I think we need to use the opportunity to close the issue, heal from the discussions, and have one issue and one issue only in this election, getting the Democrats elected up and down the ballot. And I don't think not taking a position on this takes away from that. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. All right, so our next speaker is from the Yes column, Carol Fontaine.
Hi, everybody. I am proud to be an Arlington Democrat, and I'm proud and happy to work with all of you. We differ on this particular issue as we have on other issues in the past, but we all want transparent, nonpartisan redistricting. The difference this time is that I and the others who are opposed believe very strongly that the proposed amendment is none of those things. We believe that it will end up in the state Supreme Court, which will gerrymander the maps so that Democrats will lose the State House, and more importantly, our Democratic voters will lose their voice. I have used the phrase Trojan horse. It might be a little outdated, but I really believe what's on the inside of this amendment is really dangerous. As Jill announced and others have repeated, the steering committee voted overwhelmingly to take a position and by an even larger margin to recommend voting against the amendment. 79% of the steering committee were against the amendment. And these are the Democratic activists who are in the trenches with you every day. To those who say voters will decide, of course the voters will decide, as they should. They will be lobbied by the proponents and by those opposed. So regardless of what is on our sample Democratic ballot, the voters are going to decide. The difference here is that I believe that it's our job to make a specific recommendation on this issue, as we do on other issues. The voters look to us and rely on us to have done the homework and read the fine print. There are those whom I greatly respect and enjoy working with who are focusing on the optics of this. I got to tell you, I am much less worried about the optics than I am about losing the State House. We have time and many different avenues to address the optics. Regardless of the outcome, I was going to say irregardless because I know that's just been added to the dictionary, but it's really regardless of the outcome. I'm committed to working closely with all of you as we always do to elect our full slate of Democrats on November 3rd and to defeat you-know-who.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you. Okay. It is really difficult to interrupt at the end of your time, but I know that it's for, so we can have enough speakers. All right, our next speaker from the No column is Janice Morris. Janice?
Thank you. Thank you all for listening. I'm an Arlington Democrat as well, and I have been in the trenches myself every day for the past 3 years for the constitutional amendment. So I hope my efforts will be valued and respected as well. I'm a constituent actually of Delegate Rip Sullivan, and I actually spoke with him on the phone today. And I wanted to say thank you to him because he's been very open and honest with me and been more than willing to share one-on-one conversations to discuss our differences on this. So it's not our first conversation, and I might add, and the reason we talked today was because I had asked him several months ago after his vote that he not actively campaign against this amendment, and he told me he would not. And so when I saw the flyer the other day with his name on it, I was somewhat surprised, and I sent him a note saying that. And he immediately called me up and said, let's talk about it. So I said, you know, I don't understand, you know, why you would do that. And he said, well, I am not actively campaigning against the amendment. I thought this was more towards an internal discussion for our group. He also said in that conversation that he was not concerned about the Virginia Supreme Court role in the constitutional amendment, despite what the opposition has been saying. And he said he would not sign the flyer if it had that argument in there because he could not stand by it. He also said that the focus that the ACDC should not take a position tonight. He told me that he thought that was too divisive and it would not be in our best interest for the Arlington County Democratic Committee to take a position this evening. He also said we should be focusing our efforts on Joe Biden getting elected this November, which I totally support and completely agree with. And I would reiterate that taking a position tonight would undermine that effort. So there should be some healthy skepticism about some of the concerns that have been raised against the amendment. Even Delegate Sullivan has some. So this is a complex issue. It should be left up to the voters to make up their own minds, in all fairness. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice, for your remarks. Okay, sorry. All right, so our next speaker is in the yes column, Scott McConnell. Scott? Scott, are you muted? Let me see. All right, we seem to have lost Scott. I don't see him on the list of participants at this time, so we will come back to him. Okay, so our next speaker will be Phoebe. Phoebe? I'm staying in the yes column.
Okay, sorry. I had to mute button. Okay, so I'm not a good public speaker, but anyway, I really think that we need to take a stance on this. I think it would be a mistake for us not to. The average voter does not read through the legislator to be voted upon in its entirety. People look to us as the Democratic Party to have a statement on legislature. I understand that people are saying that it's divisive, and obviously there are opposing point of views, but I will reiterate what other people have said. This split is nowhere near close. Any redistricting reform is going to sound great upon first glance because everyone wants nonpartisan redistricting reform, which this is not. Not only is this amendment not good enough, we should be looking at those across the aisle who are supporting this and why. It's naive to assume that the people that we know that support gerrymandering would support a fair bipartisan redistricting bill, and for that alone, this deserves another look, and we should be taking a stance on it. I have the utmost respect for the other, Democratic legislators and volunteers, and I don't think disagreement is disrespect. And whether or not we create a ballot, this is up to the voters in the end. This isn't the only information that they're going to receive, but it is our responsibility to break down legislation into layman's terms so that people don't have to be lawyers to understand what's going on and don't have to read and watch all of these things that all of us have done to become so aware of the issue. Every civilian vote has come out greatly against. I think so. That's all I have to say. Thank y'all for listening.
Thank you very much, Phoebe. I think you are a great speaker. Okay, so when you speak with passion about a topic, that makes it powerful. All right, our next speaker in the no column is Ankit Jain. Ankit?
Yeah, I'm a supporter of the amendment, but I'm in favor of us not taking a position, if possible. I'm the chair of the Arlington Young Democrats Civil Rights and Liberties Commission. I'm a little newer because I just moved back to the area. So I just like to point out that, we've seen a lot of arguing back and forth over the past 2 weeks on this amendment. You've seen dueling letters from, our Democratic state delegates and our Democratic state senators. You go on Facebook, people are arguing back and forth all the time on the Facebook pages, on people's statuses. And if we take a position on this amendment, this is just going to continue all the way to November. Is that what we want as a party, to continue this divisive issue all the way to November? Why don't we just not take a position and get it off the table? People can then, as individuals, go and advocate for their position however they want. But as a party, we shouldn't be taking a position that's going to splinter people so much. We are divided, and people always talk about the votes, but I think it's worth pointing out that people who are super active in Democratic politics might have a different perspective and different, prism through which they see things than the average Democratic volunteer. And the average Democratic volunteer is very divided. Actually, I mean, they're mostly supportive of it, but at the very least, they're divided. You can say that. And so I don't think that we should be taking a position that will really just create bitterness and continue that until November. Let's just not take a position. People can advocate one way or the other, however they want, as as private individuals, but let's, as a party, take this issue off the table. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the next speaker, we still don't have any undecideds. The next speaker will be Mark Levine on the yes side.
Thank you, Jackie. You all know how I feel about this amendment. I'm going to talk about it in the opposition part. But I think it's important that we take a position. The vast majority of voters are not going to take the time to read the amendment. Unfortunately, I've talked to people who, on both sides, who have not read the amendment. And I guess I would encourage everyone, if you don't take the time to read the amendment, you have to vote no. Because why would you change the Constitution for something you haven't read? Voters don't know what's in it. They don't know that there's a Republican veto, that if the leader of the Republican Party wants to go to the Republican Supreme Court, they directly can. That's not clear to people. There's a massive campaign for this amendment, supported by the Republican Party, supported by a multi-million-dollar that's paying a lot of lobbyists to come and support this amendment. We only have us. We have the Democratic Party of Virginia, which strongly opposes it, the Fairfax Democrats, which strongly oppose it by a vote of 5-1. The Arlington Steering Committee, as you know, opposes it. We have us, and that's all we have. And we work really hard in Arlington and across Virginia to elect Democrats. And this, of course, according to Todd Gilbert, the leader of the Republicans, he thinks this amendment is key to the Republican takeover of the General Assembly. Those are his words. He thinks it was remarkable that any Democrats supported it. So this is a very, very important question. And I would hate that we came into power for 2 years and then we're out of power for decades because this is a flawed amendment. So I think it's critical that we take a position, and it's critical that we encourage people to read the actual language of the amendment. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, so our next speaker on the no side is Maggie Davis. Maggie?
Yeah, thanks, Jackie. So first, I just want to say I have listened to Democrats that I respect very much on both sides of this issue. There are people that are bona fide Democrats up and down the ballot that have genuine disagreements on the substance of the amendment. I just want to focus on whether or not the party should take a position. My personal view, I have heard myself from a lot of voters, strong Democrats, that do not see this as a position the party should weigh in on. And I really want to encourage everyone to think not just of 2020 with Donald Trump on the ballot. We are going to get our volunteers out. 2020, it's an all-out election. I want us to also look at 2021 and 2023. I am already getting messages from voters that are saying that they are not trusting the Democrats because they see us taking a position very viscerally. And I just want to put that out there to say that, yes, I think there is a strong consensus within the steering committee. I don't know what our broader precinct captain network thinks, but I just want to share to everyone that this is not a, you know, unknown issue within the Arlington voting universe, and that there are some very strong Democrats that have personally reached out to lobby, at least myself, that are questioning whether or not they're going to continue supporting Democrats moving forward. So this is not a vote without consequence. I know there's a lot of people I respect on all sides, but I just want to share some of the voices that you might not have heard that feel very, very strongly that the Democratic Party should not take a position.
Thank you, Maggie. Okay, so our next speaker is on the yes column, Steve Baker. Steve?
Thank you so much. I see my name's been added to that list. I'll just say very briefly, this is a constitutional amendment of all the things that we take a position on. I think it is really, really important that we, as a party, have a position on whether or not we support or don't support something that is going to become part of our Constitution. So I'll just say that at face value, it is extremely important that we tell the, and the voters are going to demand it. A lot of the voters that get to the polls are going to see that there's a constitutional amendment. They will have not done the research. They will have not been a part of this discussion, and they will want to know what our position is. I know opinions vary, but we are the Big Tent party. We're not supposed to agree on everything. We're supposed to have discussion. We're supposed to have division. We're supposed to see issues from a variety of angles. So I'm really, really pleased that the committee is having this discussion, and I am confident that we will get together when this is over and encourage folks to vote that we, yes, take a position on this really, really important issue. Thank you.
Okay, so it looks like we are out of no speakers, so we will go on to Mary Detweiler. Mary?
There I go. Trouble muting. Hi, I'm Mary Detweiler, and I want to say that I think we're all fully on board to kill the salamander that took the name of old Governor Gary, now cannot pronounce Jerry, in the early 19th century. Would it be a monster today? And we're all on board with this idea. The question is how. And one of the things that I keep hearing repeatedly is the optics, which to me mean that it could be politics that worry us. And I urge us not to go the political route. One definition of politics is relating to the ideas or strategy of a particular party or group in politics. Example, a decision taken for purely political reasons. And I think I want us to think about what that would mean if we were to pass what I believe personally to be a flawed amendment because we fear criticism, want to avoid controversy because we're afraid of it, despite having knowledge and ability to fight what we want. That to me is not up to snuff for the Democratic Party. I believe we owe it to our voters to provide guidance, share our knowledge, do the research, point out what is misinformation, what is misleading, and I believe as Arlington Democrats, we must take an active role. I heard a comment that disturbed me a bit from an elected official, I won't name who that was, who said, everyone needs to trust your gut. and ignore the weeds. And essentially what is meant here is nothing to see, move along, except that it is the best we can do. And I would counter that by saying we should scrutinize very carefully what we put into our state constitution. This is serious stuff. It's deserving of our getting down into the weeds to know what we are doing. So I will urge everyone to vote that we do take a position on this and vote yes on question 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. All right, so once again, I've been asked to ensure that all of you are muted if you are not speaking. And so I have gone through and muted a few people that, but I'm not able, there's someone on the phone and I am not able to mute. Sorry, my neighbor is stopping by. Okay, so at this point we have, I'm on a Zoom. Yeah, no. Sorry. Sorry. Okay, so we have, looks like all of our speakers for question 1 have spoken. And we are at 8 o'clock, so it is 30 minutes. And so it's time to move on to our next question. Now, what will happen is that we'll also discuss this topic for 30 minutes. And at the end of that, the voting form will remain, all of a sudden. It's,
vote on this question first.
Pardon?
Don't we have to vote on whether or not we're taking a position before we begin the next debate?
The way the form is, we have to do basically both votes. So what we will do is we will, everybody will vote on both questions, and then we will reveal, once the votes are validated, we'll reveal the answer to the first question, and then before going on to reveal the results of the second question if the first question is resolved in the positive. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So let's get back to our list of voters for question 2. So if the Arlington Dems decide to take a position, which position should the Arlington Dems take? So the way the columns are written here, the first speaker is for opposing the amendment, and that is Matt Royer. Matt, you have 2 minutes.
We as Democrats all agree that nonpartisan, independent, and transparent redistricting is the ultimate goal of our redistricting reform. We stand for free and fair elections in districts that actually represent the people that live in them. It's difficult to have this debate because there are incredible Democrats that I respect and admire on both sides. However, it is my philosophy that when you see something that will be an impediment to progress, you must stand up to it no matter the cost. And this proposed amendment stands to be an unneeded obstacle in our fight for actual nonpartisan, independent, and transparent redistricting. Actual independent redistricting reform has the ultimate goal of allowing voters to pick their representatives and not for representatives to pick their voters. Including members of the General Assembly on this commission is inherently contradictory to that goal. It should not be up to our elected officials to make redistricting decisions. It should be up to their constituents and their voters in order to hold them accountable. And it was those same voters last week here in Arlington that spoke overwhelmingly in opposition to the redistricting amendment. There's a notion that somehow our party being against this constitutional amendment is hypocritical. However, when we spoke in support of redistricting reform, we didn't sign up for a bipartisan elected official influence commission enshrined in the Virginia Constitution. We spoke for non-party influenced, exclusively civilian, transparent processes, which will not be an option if this amendment succeeds. Redistricting led by elected officials only allows those in power to stay in power, and that goes for Republicans and Democrats alike. We do not need to enshrine this flawed amendment when there is proposed legislation in its place that is ready to go. It is not the be-all, end-all of redistricting reform. However, it may as well put a nail in it because it will take a lot more time and effort to repeal this than it would be to rewrite it. We must make the right decision while we still have the option to. I urge you all to vote to oppose the constitutional amendment. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Matt. Perfect timing. Okay, so our next speaker is on the support the amendment side, Chris, and I believe I mispronounced your name before, Buchheit, I believe.
That's okay, everybody mispronounces it. So agreed or not, this is the best chance to remove any single party from making the maps of 2021. And that's why there are so many respected people and groups supporting the amendment. The Washington Post, Senators Favola, Howell, and Evan, the ACLU, the League of Women Voters, Tim Kaine, Mark Warner, Don Beyer, Eric Holder, the list goes on. Here's what the entire situation boils down to. The proposal in front of us guarantees a fair process and fundamentally prevents any one party from drawing the maps ever again. If we have issues with the people who are part of that process, they can be replaced over time. We can do the work to retain that majority and replace the people we may not like in that process. If the amendment does not pass in time for 2021 redistricting, it'll be far likelier that we're going to be getting a Democratic gerrymander because it takes 2 years to pass an amendment. Any new law passed will inherently conflict with the state constitution and it will be advisory only. It doesn't guarantee fair anything and they're only promises at this point. My last point is consider the PR here. We're already fighting negative PR as a party for supposedly being a closed off party here. We're just going to increase that negative PR by voting against a bipartisan commission that includes citizens. We're going to lose voters, we're going to lose volunteers, and the Republicans are going to exploit the stance on this for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. All right, so our next speaker will be Phoebe Carlson on the oppose the amendment side. Phoebe?
What's up? It's me again. Okay. So we're all gonna say the same thing over and over. The people who are opposed, we think there's a poison pill in this. There is. The fact that you only need 2 people to send it to the Supreme Court is so unbelievably problematic. I don't understand why they didn't make it more than 2. I think I would have much less of an issue with it. I don't know. But one of my biggest things is that people are saying, okay, well, what if it doesn't end up being okay, then we'll fix it later. So let's just say that. Maybe we can fix it later. To that I say, have you heard of the Virginia Marriage Amendment? Because it was passed in 2006 and is part of our Virginia Constitution, and it bans gay marriage. We love gay marriage, we love rights, we love equality, we are all about that. So we can agree, most of America can agree that that should be a right, and yet it is still in the Virginia Constitution despite being ruled unconstitutional and unenforceable. So the fact that it has been brought up twice in the last 10 years to try to get it repealed and it has not gone through is unbelievable. So if there is something that we have such a general consensus on as gay marriage that we cannot get repealed out of our Virginia Constitution, then why would we put something that is potentially problematic in our Constitution now? We have absolutely no reason to believe that the Virginia Supreme Court will uphold what we believe is right and not vote along party lines. We have no reason to believe that. We have no reason to believe that we'll be able to fix this later on. So I just think that if we have any doubt, we should be voting no. We should not be supporting amending the Virginia Constitution without a consensus. That's what I think. And I think it would be a mistake for us not to say so to our voters, or at the very least, write down details or something to make them understand what the commission looks like, what the vetoes look like, what happens when it vetoes, and then allow them to make that decision. That's where we need to go, then that's fine. But I think we take long to vote yes on this.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Phoebe. Okay, so our next speaker on the support the amendment side is Ankit. Ankit, are you ready?
Hey, all, I'm back again as well. So we have the opportunity here a historic opportunity to end gerrymandering in our state once and for all. With this amendment, we're going to give citizens a seat at the table for the first time ever. Going to have requirements for transparency and have a mini Voting Rights Act that stands even if the Federal Voting Rights Act is struck down. So we have a lot of good things coming here. But I understand that people, you all are scared. You're wondering what if the commission deadlocks and the Supreme Court justices get together in a back room and draw a Republican gerrymander? So I understand the fear you guys have here. But my question is, where is the evidence that this will actually happen? Where's the proof? Can anyone point to a redistricting commission that has ever deadlocked, or a court that has ever in the history of this country drawn a gerrymandered map? And the truth is, numerous experts have looked at this proposal and concluded that the secret Republican gerrymander is not a real risk. The Princeton Gerrymandering Project writes, and I'm quoting, the Supreme Court of Virginia has been quite deferential to the General Assembly in redistricting disputes, only stepping in when there's been a clear constitutional violation. And then it actually cites the two cases. They did their homework, and I'll send the report and so you can see it for yourself. Representative Don Beyer wrote of the Virginia Supreme Court being the backstop, this mirrors a requirement in my very own Fair Representations Act. You know, the League of Women Voters, the ACLU, Common Cause, Brennan Center for Justice, Fair Vote, Sierra Club, so many other organizations, they've all looked at this amendment, looked at this idea of a secret Republican gerrymander and concluded it will not happen. It's not a real threat. So, you know, when I'm not sure about what a policy will do, I look at what the experts say. And we've just spent the past 5 months, we're still in it, seeing the consequences of not listening to the experts with coronavirus. So what I'm saying is you don't have to worry. This amendment is not going to lead to a secret Republican gerrymander. And I'm asking you not, you don't have to put your faith in me. Don't put your faith in the Republicans. Put your faith in the experts, the people who sweat the details on proposals like this amendment. It's not worth sacrificing this progress.
Thank you very much.
Jackie, you're muted.
Okay. Thank you. All right, our next speaker on the oppose the amendment side is Corey Barton. Corey?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay, perfect. Sorry, I'm in the car, so I just want to make sure everyone can hear me. So hi, everyone. As you know, I made several points on the steering committee meeting last week about how I oppose this amendment. First and foremost, this amendment is a partisan poison pill. It only takes 2 members of one party to object before it goes to the state Supreme Court. As we know, almost every member on that Supreme Court was installed by the Republican-controlled legislature before Democrats took over. I think it is a little bit short-sighted to note that while our state Supreme Court hasn't intervened in redistricting cases before, what says that they won't do that now they have a constitutional amendment on their side and gives them more power to intervene. At the same time, I am very concerned about the number of concerns that have been raised by members of our Virginia Legislative Black Caucus who have raised concerns about minority representation on this commission that are redrawing these districts. I think when they make concerns like that, it's important for us to listen to them. At the same time, I think we have to really think about what it means when Republican legislators are saying that Democrats are giving in to their wildest dreams and going along with them and supporting an amendment and being utterly surprised that Democrats are doing the bidding of Republicans. So I think when Republicans shows you who they are, we should listen. So I really, really encourage you to vote no on this amendment. We should not be putting this partisan poison pill into our Constitution. We can and we should do better. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Corey, for those remarks. Okay, whoops, sorry, let me start my timer. Stop my timer. Okay, the next speaker on the support the amendment side is Jeff Lawson. Jeff?
Hello. Mark Levine said something tonight that has really stuck with me, and it was the word power. Democrats supported this amendment when we were the minority party, and now that we are the majority party and we are in power, we don't want to give up any control over anything. We as a committee voted on a resolution for nonpartisan redistricting, and I voted for that. But at the time, I thought that what was actually being proposed or would be proposed is something that would be nonpartisan. It's not. What they're saying is their magical nonpartisan committee is not nonpartisan at all. Yes, it is citizens that are not politicians, but those citizens are given a laundry list, a big, long, long list of things written by the majority and said, this is what you have to do. A bipartisan commission is actually better because it's both sides coming together, having to debate in a public way with eyes on them so that they draw maps that don't favor anyone. And in the end, either side, Republicans or Democrats, could kick that to the Supreme Court. But as was said before, there are so many laws that govern what can be done, and there is absolutely no precedent for a Supreme Court ever drawing gerrymandered maps. I just don't see it being a credible threat.
You have 38 seconds left. Are you finished?
I'm done, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Jeff, for the All right, so our next speaker on the oppose the amendments side is Mark Levine. Mark, Delegate Mark.
Thank you, Jackie. So here's the biggest story that you haven't seen in the newspaper. Democrats banned gerrymandering in the 2020 session. You don't have to take my word for it. Go look up HB 1255 and look at paragraph 8. We banned gerrymandering. Every single Democrat in the House of Delegates and the Senate voted to ban gerrymandering. Every single Republican voted to have gerrymandering. It was a pure party line vote. The governor signed it into law. It is illegal now under the law. But of course, constitutions trump laws. The only way to bring gerrymandering back would be to pass this constitutional amendment. And even its patron, George to me, at House Privileges and Elections, that there is no prohibition on political gerrymandering in this constitutional amendment. So again, the law right now, as of July 1st, it's a new law. We can't gerrymander now unless this amendment is passed, and then the Supreme Court can gerrymander. There's an alternative independent commission, that's HB 1256. 71 out of 76 Democrats voted for that, including all the senators and all the delegates of Arlington. It passed the House, barely failed in the Senate. I am confident that will pass unanimously next year. And how do I know this? You got 71 out of 76 votes. And the Republicans, they want this gerrymandering constitutional amendment. Todd Gilbert made that clear. But if they don't get it, they would prefer fair maps over a Democratic gerrymander. That's 135 votes right there. We Democrats have stood by our principles. We have opposed gerrymandering from the get-go. This proposal was the only one that Mark Cole would let through in 2019. The responsibility to do it right now, and we will. And if we don't, you can hold us accountable. You have no power to hold Todd Gilbert accountable or the Virginia Supreme Court accountable, but you can hold us accountable, and every single one of us opposes gerrymandering. We can do this right. We don't need to put a flawed amendment in the Constitution that we can never get rid of. So this is our chance. This is our moment. And my time is up. Thank you, Jackie.
Your remarks. Okay, so our next speaker on the support the amendment side is Janice Morris. Janice, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. I want to reiterate that the statements that there is not overwhelming Democratic support for this amendment is just completely false and should not be taken as fact. And to those who say you can't fix it later, there is enabling legislation ready to go to make it better as soon as the politicians decide to focus on it and pass it. And again, the SCOVA distrust argument is fraught with loopholes and is not even supported by Delegate Sullivan, as I mentioned before. And I would also point out the minority legislators in the Senate all support the constitutional amendment. So we should listen to them as well. Next, I'm reminded of President Obama's words at John Lewis's funeral, calling us to support the enhancement of the Voting Rights Act by ending gerrymandering. What we need now is profiles and courage. Can we as Democrats give up the power to draw the maps, or was it all just a smokescreen? Can we take on the kind of courageous leadership that supporting this amendment calls for? And if you are not sure what the real facts are about this issue, what is gained by alienating a large majority of our Democratic Party members by coming out on a ballot recommendation against it? Do we not trust the voters of Virginia, who have never once had a voice in this issue before, to make up their own minds? It is a question of trust. Let's not undermine our faith in the voters. Let's show them the respect they are due and which they haven't been given by politicians in power. Let's follow in the footsteps of President Obama and John Lewis and end gerrymandering in Virginia now, once and for all, and that we have the chance. Despite promises that legislation will be passed sometime in the future to get a new amendment passed, that is a promise that cannot realistically be fulfilled. This opportunity will not come again. Please, please, I ask you, trust the voters of Virginia and let them make up their own minds. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice, for your remarks. Our next speaker on the oppose the amendment side is Mary Detweiler. Mary?
Hey, thank you, everyone. Yes, Mary Detweiler. You've seen the history of the proposed amendment. We all agreed back in 2018, the fall, and back on 2019, we all agreed on the idea of a citizen commission, but obviously with Republicans controlling both chambers, we lost what we had intended to do. Now I believe that we have in this proposal a commission that is heavily weighted by the likelihood of having legislative leaders themselves being on the commission and by the citizens being pulled from lists from those very same legislative leaders. I do not see how that translates into independence. I believe that we need to have open debates on this. We need to have our Senator Kane, Representative Beyer, many other people. I would love to see a lot of the people who've made statements before the actual current amendment came out, if they support this particular version of the amendment. I think that many of them, along with a lot of us, certainly were on board with what was proposed very early in 2019 and definitely at the end of 2018. But my point is that we need to make sure that any misinformation on quotes, when those quotes came out, is all open to everyone. We should all be using quotes that are specifically referring to this particular version of the amendment as opposed to what we aim for. And to me, what's at stake here is the voices of Virginia citizens being reflected in our legislature. That's what we're aiming for. I believe that we can reset this. We can do it right. We have the House, the Senate, the governor. We can establish a process. Many pieces of legislation have already been proposed, killed over and over and over again, but they're out there. We know exactly what they are. And a revised version of the constitutional amendment was attempted by Delegate Simon Marcus back in the midwinter, and that one didn't get through, but it's out there. We know how to do this. So I hope that we will take a position and move quickly as we have the ability to do right now and do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. All right, so our next speaker on the support the amendment side is Ian White. Ian, you have 2 minutes.
Hello, everyone. So I just wanted to explain my thought process on this. It was a hard decision for me. If we want to have a nonpartisan, like the ideal, like the nonpartisan commission, we need to have that amendment pass the legislature 2 sessions in a row. That assumes that we maintain a Democratic majority and a strong enough one, no one flips sides to vote for it 2 sessions in a row. As soon as we can do that. Frankly, I'm skeptical that this will happen. If you look at 2008, Barack Obama won our state by 6 percentage points. 2009, Bob McDonnell won by double digits. The odds of the Supreme Court gerrymandering the maps for Republicans is low based on what the experts say. I won't say there's no chance, but I will say we know for sure what Republicans will do if they gain back the legislature. They will do what they did last decade. They will redistrict mid-decade for themselves, and I have a feeling they will do a worse job than they did last time. So those are the 2 things that I'm juggling in my mind. I just think this amendment is, better for us if Republicans happen to take back seats next year and in 2023. We can't pretend that it's a sure thing that we're always going to be in power. And so I think that's why we need to adopt this amendment and then push for further changes in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. All right, so our next speaker on the oppose the amendment side is Craig Hines. Craig, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. First of all, I am also a constituent of Rip Sullivan. He voted against this amendment. If he wanted to make some other comment, he could. He's a member of this committee. First and foremost, I am for a nonpartisan, independent redistricting process. This proposed amendment is neither. Every member of the proposed commission will be a member of the General Assembly, recommended by a small group of partisan leaders in the General Assembly, or as a retired judge who got to the bench because the General Assembly approved them. The principal risk of this proposed amendment, and I think it's a certainty in my view, is that just 2 Republicans will torpedo the commission's work and send the map making without guidelines, criteria, review, or guarantee of transparency to the Republican-controlled Supreme Court of Virginia. Proponents need to state clearly what part of the threat posed by Republican leader Todd Gilbert they do not understand or believe. I'm far more concerned about keeping a fatally flawed amendment out of the Virginia Constitution than I am about someone dishing Democrats because we didn't buy into the Republicans' dream amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. And we go to the support the amendment side. We have Chris DeRosa. Chris? We have 2 minutes.
Hold on. Hi, I'm here again. Let me quickly address a couple things. Yes, you could pass some bills in 2021. Keep in mind that any commissions that are created by the bills, legislation would be advisory only. We did have a couple of bills that didn't quite make it through. That's Mark Levine had a couple, Sia Price had one that I know of. Interestingly, at least their bills ended up with the commission that also had 8 legislators and 8 citizens on them. Interesting too, Sia Price's bill would have sent the decision for drawing maps, if the commission failed, back to the General Assembly rather than the Supreme Court. And the General Assembly, I think, would love to have that opportunity to gerrymander as opposed to the Supreme Court. Okay, Supreme Court. So don't let the opponents scare you too much about the Supreme Court. They are not partisan hacks. All except one were actually approved unanimously by the General Assembly. If they were that terrible and not qualified, then someone should have spoken up. Let's see. The Supreme Court has in just the past year actually supported and upheld Governor Northam's 3 of his executive orders. So they again are not partisan hacks trying to do the Republicans' bidding. Courts in history have never drawn gerrymandered maps. They always hire an expert special master to draw the maps. And in fact, the special master's redrawn maps recently in Virginia resulted in a gain of 4 seats for the Democrats. So we don't need to worry about letting the Supreme Court gerrymander maps in favor of the Republicans. Don Beyer wrote, quote, "This mirrors a requirement in my very own Fair Representation Act, which sends maps to a panel of judges in the event a redistricting commission is not enacted on the state level."
Chris, I'm sorry, your time is up. Thank
Okay.
you so much for your remarks. Okay, so our next speaker is on the opposed, the amendment side, and that will be Steve Baker. Steve, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you so much, Jackie. Like everyone else, I am for nonpartisan redistricting. And I want to speak just briefly on this concept of enabling or guardrail legislation that I believe in no way can fix a flawed amendment. And this amendment, which every proponent I've spoken to in the past has described as, we know it's not perfect, but it was the best we could get when Republicans controlled the General Assembly. Todd Gilbert boasted on public radio that because of this amendment, if they play their cards right, they could regain the General Assembly. Guardrail legislation will not work because there is no requirement in the amendment for the Supreme Court of Virginia to use a special master. And there is no recourse for the commission to challenge what the Supreme Court comes up with. It only takes 2 Republicans to torpedo the commission's efforts and then, quote, "The districts shall be established by the Supreme Court of Virginia, period," unquote. The Supreme Court of the United States, right after Bethune-Hill, decided that they were no longer going to look at these state redistricting cases. They were going to leave everything up to the states from now on. So if this amendment passes, the Supreme Court of Virginia will be able to act with impunity without any guardrails. And this is the same Supreme Court of Virginia that told Terry McAuliffe he couldn't restore voting rights the way he wanted to, not because it was unconstitutional, not because it was illegal, but because no one had done it that way in the past. We don't want to trust these guys with redistricting. We need to vote no on the amendment. Thank you.
Perfect timing on that one. Well done. Okay, so we are at 8:30, so we have been having this conversation for 1 hour. So at this point in time, we will close the conversation, the discussion. I'd like to thank you all for, again, a civil and passionate discussion. Now, as a reminder, the link for voting the form is accessed through the email that I sent earlier this week, and voting will remain open for another 15 minutes until 8:45 p.m. And I'll turn it back over to Joe.
Thanks so much, Jackie. Really appreciate it. Let me see if I can get the slides back up. It's always a question mark. Okay. Hopefully you can see that. So there was we just had our discussion. I want to thank everybody for a very civil discussion. There's passion on both sides, but we can all agree that we are good Democrats here trying to do the right thing. I want to thank Jackie for leading that discussion and this process. Jackie and I have remained quiet in terms of taking a position on these important questions because we really did want to make sure that this process was as open and as fair as it could be through running the 3 educational events and through this process itself. So I hope that everyone who has a voting right is able to take advantage of it. We're going to give you an extra 15 minutes to make sure you can get your votes in. If you're having any sort of trouble, please email technology@arlingtondemocrats.org and our awesome tech team will get you sorted. I do want to remind folks that, I think Steve Baker said it best when he said, we're a big tent party and we do disagree sometimes. That's sometimes how you get the best ideas. And so I really want to urge everyone that regardless of how this vote comes out, that we remember that we have very big fish to fry in November, that we unite to defeat Donald Trump, which could not be more important. So hopeful that everyone will be able to accept whatever the results are and move forward in a united fashion, because we really do need to restore sanity to the White House and to our country. I do want to keep us moving in our agenda because we do have quite a bit to go and lots of information about how you can help to achieve that end of winning back the White House. So I'm going to move us on to our joint campaign update. And I know that there are several joint campaign co-chairs in the room. And so I'm going to ask one or multiple of them to please present their slides.
Thanks, Jill. Hi, this is Corey. I think I'll start first. So I'll be very brief. We launched our gold card ticket sales today. Yay! So you all should have gotten an email about that. If you haven't, I will find you and can get you a link. So if you see on the screen, the link for you to go and buy your gold card here is arlingtondemocrats.org/gold card. I would encourage you to make sure you get your tickets by Labor Day, because all prices for the gold card tickets go up by $25 starting on Labor Day. I personally would encourage you to get the gold card, purchase the gold card. It's your best value. It gives you access to all 4 events. And as you can see here on the screens, we've kept the prices for the events the same ticket prices as last year. And as a reminder, all events are virtual this year. And you can see here, our first event is coming up on Labor Day, September 7th. That is a Labor Day virtual barbecue and cookbook design contest. I'll get into that contest information more in a minute. As you can see here, the first event is on September 7th. The second one, honoring a senior Democrat, September 26th. October 3rd is our AYD event. And our culminating event is our Arlington Dem Centennial, which is a little bit different this year. It's not a gala. So we're going to be unveiling information about that and speakers and some more exciting things in the coming meetings, but just some more information about those events here. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, our first event is coming up on Labor Day, September 7th. That is the Labor Day virtual barbecue and cookbook design contest. As I spoke about in previous meetings, this meeting is, we're very sad that we can't do our traditional chili cook-off this year, but we wanted to sort of commemorate that event by having it feel sort of similar to had that event in the past. So this event, your favorite recipes, and yes, we're going to have a number of different recipe categories in the cookbook, and you'll see more of that. You'll see more of that editorial content come from us in the future meetings. But you should have gotten, if you go to the Gold Card website, there's a link where you can click to submit your recipes. And if you look down here, we are also encouraging folks to submit their favorite cover designs. So on the front cover of the cookbook, it will be the adult competition section. And then on the back side, it will be the kids competition section. And we are defining kids as 18 and under. So here are some information you see on your screen here, some of the different rules. So we encourage you to make sure your design submission is in portrait orientation. We encourage it to be kid-friendly and appropriate. And we're also encouraging you to submit as a PDF or JPEG so that it doesn't mess with the resolution. As you can see here, the email on the screen, you can email your design to rldemscookoff@gmail.com. And we are asking that you submit that by Thursday, September 3rd, so that we can, if you want to be entered for the chance to win. So anyone can submit a recipe submission to the cookbook. However, if you would like a copy of the cookbook, you have to either purchase a gold card or purchase a ticket to one of the individual events to get a copy of the cookbook. So we'll be, as I mentioned, we'll be unveiling some information about the speakers in the coming weeks. We're still lining up to make sure we are still confirming those speakers, so more information about will be coming soon. Yeah, that's, if you have any information about the gold card, again, the website is arlingtondemocrats.org/gold card, or if you're not able to, if you have trouble with it, just email us at jointcampaign@arlingtondemocrats.org. So that's my section, and I'll stop there and see if any of the other co-chairs have anything to add. Oh, actually, Jill, I think there may be one more slide after this.
Actually, I think there might be a couple.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So actually, dollars for DIMS. We have an update on dollars for DIMS. So Carol Burnett is running that. And I'm not sure if Carol is on or wants to say anything else about it, but Carol has been forcefully getting all this information together and getting our volunteers the envelopes, and they're in the process of stuffing those now, so to go out on around Labor Day. So you should be getting those in your mailboxes pretty soon after Labor Day. So Carol, thank you for all your hard work on that. I'm not sure, is Carol on the line if she wants to add anything to that?
I just would like to thank everybody who volunteered. I think I had 14 more people than we needed to address envelopes. People really volunteered quickly, and thank you very much to everybody. I'm sorry I didn't have enough envelopes to give to all of you.
Yes, thank you so much, Carol. I really appreciate it.
I don't see anything.
So that's all of the updates from the fundraising and events section. So I'll stop there, and as I said, send me an email at jointcampaign@arlingtondemocrats.org if you have any questions, and we'll get back to you. Thanks,
Great.
Jill.
Thanks, Corey. And I think we also are going to hear very briefly from the coordinated campaign field organizers, or at least one of them. So I'm going to pause here and see if Adam or one of the field organizers is on the line.
Yep, I'm here. Thank you so much, Jill, for squeezing me in. My name is Adam. I'm the regional field director for the coordinated campaign. The coordinated campaign, if you're not familiar, is the field staff for Joe Biden, Mark Warner, and Representative Don Beyer here in Arlington. Just a few quick updates for you. Very shortly, we're going to be organizing convention watch parties and some other virtual house party events. So I'll drop a link in the chat where you can find all of our virtual events on our Mobilize page, and they're not live yet, but just stay tuned and you guys can sign up for any of those events. Then of course, we're continuing phone banking in light of no canvassing because of the pandemic. We could definitely use your help. Wednesday at 5 is the most popular one that a few of you have already signed up for. So thank you for those who have already phone banked. And I think I'll just leave it there. Thank you so much for all the help, and I'll see you out on the campaign trail.
Great. And the coordinated campaigns, various activities are at that Mobilize link that's on the screen. So please check it out if you're interested in doing some early work for the full ticket. That is the place to go. Okay. One last slide that we had in the joint campaign section, it does relate to field. We just wanted to get you excited. So we always have a grip card every year. This year we're doing something a little bit different in light of the public health situation. Our grip card is going to be a door hanger. So it works the same way, but you can leave it on doors a little bit more easily. It's not done yet because we don't officially have our full ticket, but this is what the front is going to look like. So get excited because they're coming soon to a doorknob near you. And so we'll be looking forward to getting those grip cards or door hangers out to Arlington voters as quickly as possible. And as well, we'll be working on the messenger newsletter, getting great information about our candidates. All right, moving on to precinct operations. I believe Carol is going to provide the update.
That would be me. Yeah. And so if the joint campaign is here, can precinct operations be far behind? Thanks to all of them for all the hard work they are already doing to get us ready for the fall campaign, and Precinct Ops is eager to work with you all. First thing I want to do is congratulate Jonathan Groomgool, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, our new precinct captain in Arlington Precinct. And I am just so delighted we have a precinct captain in Arlington Precinct. I've been, plugging for that for the last, I don't know how many months. So thank you, Jonathan, and welcome aboard. Slide, please. And a huge thank you to all our area chairs and our precinct captains for all they've done, and especially for all they did to help elect Takis. It was a lot of work and it paid off big time. Thanks to them also for all they've been doing to help with voter reg and a whole lot more. They are pumped and they're ready to launch into the fall campaign. Slide, please. We have precinct captain vacancies in several of our 54 precincts, but these are the ones where we especially need help. And as we've said before, you don't have to live in the precinct to be a precinct captain there. So what does a precinct captain do, you ask? Arlington's job is to be the difference in keeping Virginia blue. How many times have you heard me say that? And how many times have you heard me say this? We must get out every single last Democratic vote in Arlington to offset the other parts of the state. And much of that work happens at the precinct level. So for something new, I've asked Sarah Lanford to share with you briefly what she does as a precinct captain. Sarah, are you here, I hope?
I am. Thank you, Carol, so much. Thanks everyone. For those who may not know me, my name is Sarah Lanford, and I've been in the Arlington area for about 3.5 years now. I decided to be a precinct captain 2 years ago when I saw a Facebook post on the Arlington Dems Facebook page, really encouraging people to get involved. It seems like a really great entryway into Arlington Democrats, and I've loved it as a way to both get involved with my neighborhood at like a hyper-local level while also electing Democrats up and down the ballot. Like Carol said, our job is to make sure we turn out every single Democratic vote in Arlington County. And the main ways we do that are through poll greeting on election day and delivering our messenger. So those are some of the two biggest responsibilities. But it's really just fun to kind of get to know the voters in your precinct and kind of form a team with them so that you can turn out every single vote. So I really encourage you, if you're interested in kind of just getting a foot in the door with Arlington Dems, I think this is a great way to start. Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah. That was terrific. If you want more information and if you'd like to volunteer to be a precinct captain or just want to get involved in our precinct work, please contact me at precinctoperations@arlingtondemocrats.org. Slide, please. So a key part of what we do, and this is more and more important every year, is to reach voters who live in multi-unit buildings, which as Jill pointed out earlier, AKA MUBs. Congratulations to Mark Fiumara, who was just appointed tonight to be our new Deputy Vice Chair for MUBs. He's going to join Vice Chair Richard Skinner, who's been working hard the last couple of years to expand our MUBs program. I've asked Mark to explain briefly about building ambassadors and how you can help. So I'm going to turn it over to Mark.
Thank you, Carol. To me, building ambassadors are a critical conduit for information to voters in the county. They're over, as the slide said, there are over 1,500 condo and apartment buildings in Arlington. So I'm retired Navy, and we used to say in the Navy, it's a target-rich environment. There are also over 20,000 unregistered residents in Arlington County. That's a lot of people. Now, obviously, some of them may be are not citizens, or for whatever reason they can't register, but there are a lot of them out there. Now, I have access to VAN. I also have access to the Arlington County tax database. Now you're asking, why is that important? Because it gives us addresses of all the particular buildings that we might want to target. The idea would be that we look at in VAN for instance, for unregistered voters, and we match them up with buildings, because in VAN has their status and where they live. And we can then say, these 4 buildings in this area have a lot of unregistered voters. Why don't we have a voter registration drive there? So that's really my focus. I mean, there are a lot of other things that I need to do that I will help Richard doing. But to me, that's getting the building ambassadors, recruiting them is critical. And it's actually using the tax database and the VAN, we can identify by building and by precinct people who are strong Democrats who might want to be a building ambassador. So contact us at mubs@arlingtondemocrats.org, and I'll get you the spreadsheet and anything else I can get you out there so you can go out and recruit a MUB building ambassador. Thank you.
Mark, I think you want to go to the next slide, although I think maybe you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Yeah, there's down there, contact Mark and Richard at mubs@arlingtondemocrats.org. Great.
Let me know what you need data-wise. I'll get it to you.
Great. So going forward, precinct ops we are continuing to have area Zoom meetings, including hosting Zoom meet and greets to support voter registration, where we're working closely with Marsha Johnston and her team. She'll probably talk about that. We are moving to push early voting. Used to be called absentee in person. I'm still getting used to calling it early voting. It's so much fun. Moving to push early voting to our voters, as well as absentee by mail. We're recruiting volunteers for messenger drive, no voter contact, and also poll greeting on election day. And you can sign up here for volunteering to deliver the messengers. And I made this bit.ly link all by myself. So it's bit.ly/messdrive, and I'm very proud of that. And that
Carol, does it have the dash after it, or is that just?
No, it shouldn't have a dash. But
okay.
Yeah, sorry, but that's Mark.
Harsh and her mellow, Mark. Come on.
Yes, Mark's right. Okay, that's it for precinct ops, helping to deliver Virginia in 2020. Thank you.
Great, thanks Carol and precinct ops team. I want to note that the voting is closed for the redistricting debate. We will announce results as soon as we are finished with our checks on the data to make sure that we're getting an accurate vote count. I'd like to encourage everyone to please move off of this topic in the chat. The vote is done, the debate's done. Let us move forward to 2020's most important election to defeat Donald Trump. I also want to make very clear that both sides of this debate are absolutely welcome in Arlington Democrats, as are transplants to Arlington. I am not a native Arlingtonian. I think most of us are not. You are welcome here as well. So just wanted to make that clear. Let us keep going with our meeting and with our fight to win back the White House. And with that, I'm going to move us on to voter support. Over to Marsha Johnston.
Hey, all right, I'm off mute. Yes, so as you folks, anyone who's listened to me for the last 3 months or so, we've been testing in-person voter registration with social distancing techniques to see if we could get back at it safely. And now this next weekend, we are going to launch sort of our official initiative from now until October 13th, which is the deadline for registration to vote on November 3rd. And it is, and when I think it was Maya in a meeting was like, oh, let's do the John Lewis Memorial Weekend of Action. And I was like, oh man, that is absolutely perfect. So it is, we think it's a wonderful, wonderful way to do this. I know we all just revere this man. So on Saturday, well, first of all, Friday, and I'm sure AYD will get into it, so I'm just going to mention, they're going to have the John Lewis, a film about him in discussion on Friday evening. AYD will, I'm sure they'll talk about it. But then on Saturday and Sunday, we will do some voter registration. We've got about 7 locations. We need volunteers, and I will tell you about this in a second. Actually, I'm going to go to the next slide already. Who's doing that? There we go. Thanks. So these are some of the locations where I still need some volunteers, and I will tell you, there's a couple of others where we have a few people and they're protected and they want to just, we're going to do it, and then they want to see. We don't want a whole bunch of volunteers show up and then not be able to keep them safe. So those are okay, but the ones that are listed here, Penrose Square, the Starbucks from 9 to 11 on Saturday. Betsy Lyon is captaining that. She could probably use a couple more people there. Thank you to Mike for getting us permission to do that right there. Shirlington Library Plaza, Fran Jackson is captaining that also on Saturday from 10 to 12. And I think she's got 1 or 2 volunteers that might be able to use a couple more. The bigger places where I need volunteers actually is Cynthia's Bakery and the CVS Mall, Mega Mart Mall right next to Arlington Mill Community Center. And this is a place we have been doing it, myself and Sandra Brody. So Spanish is a real, it's not required, but it's actually really, really helpful. So I'm hopeful I will be there, probably captaining at least the morning shift. And we probably will do it Saturday and Sunday. So Spanish speakers, andale. So please sign up. Those links are on the voter registration volunteer page. And so the other one is AFAC, and Sandra is going to captain that because they have welcomed us in. And so we really do need Spanish speakers. So Sandra is native speaker, so she will be captaining that, and could probably use another couple of folks there. So those are our places, and we will be adding more. This is not just for this weekend, I will say that. This is going to be ongoing. Voter registration, we will be using some of these locations throughout the next few weeks, and we will hopefully be adding more places where there's lots of traffic, where we can safely just be present and let people know that they can register and request mail ballots if that's what they want to do. Also encourage early voting, so which will be something that's coming up as well. Next slide, please. I'm just we're kind of tied up, we're really busy with this weekend of action. Early voting is getting ready to start recruiting voters, and you'll be seeing more of about that from us in social media and on emails. But I did want to flag just what I think is a really nice collaboration. The folks that are doing normally our rides, as you all know, we weren't able to do them at the special election, and it doesn't look like we'll be able to in November either. But so they began senior voters, someone needs to mute, before the special to help them with their absentee ballots and filling them out and getting them delivered. And what they determined was that they felt like they wanted to collaborate with our traditional senior calling project, which usually would start late September, early October. And they wanted to get going with it now, just because there was a lot of confusion. And anyway, we just thought the election is so important that they wanted to get started. So if you would like to join them, they are going to start phoning within the next week to our senior voters and make sure that they're aware of how to apply and how to get their mail ballot. And I will say one other thing I noticed in the chat, and today, a lot of filled out, with exception of social security numbers, absentee by mail ballot applications arrived in the post to a lot of people in Arlington from a group called the Center for Voter Information. And it is a 501c4 that is a sister organization for the Center for Voter Participation Center. It's a legit nonprofit. And so this is another sort of tool in the box. They make mistakes like we all do sometimes. And I know in Fairfax County, apparently they made some mistakes in terms of where they were addressed to, but they are legitimate. And so if someone gets a ballot application from them, it will be addressed properly to our registrar, and they are perfectly able to finish filling it out, sign it, and send it in. So if they prefer to do it by mail like that. So just wanted to give that to say that it is not a scam. So there we go. And again, more to come. Thank you.
Thanks, Marcia. Great update. I'm going to move us on to outreach, which has got a ton going on. So heading on over to our outreach chair, Mike Heminger, for the big update.
Thanks, Jill. Good evening, Arlington Democrats. My name is Big Mike. I can't say it enough. We have an incredible weekend of action planned. We hope to see everyone out. There's many locations all across Arlington. If you don't feel comfortable, please help us spread the word on your social media channels. Let's get the word out. Let's honor John Lewis. Next up, we have 2 forums that we're working on. First is going to be the status of the Juvenile Detention Center, working very closely with DETA. So thank you for taking point on that, DETA. Stay tuned. It's probably going to be happening at the end of August, beginning of September. We're also working on putting together a forum on housing policy and COVID, and more specifically, how evictions are being processed. So more to come on that. Great news on farmers markets. We are resuming those. You can find us at 2 locations. We'll be at and at Columbia Pike. We are taking extraordinary measures to protect our volunteers, things like infrared thermometers, sanitizer, gloves, shield, enlarged QR codes. So we are taking every measure that we can to keep volunteers safe, but we will be resuming at farmers markets, and there'll be a lot of good learning for us. Good news on the website as well. We have a very strong presence on outreach, which is really great. As many of you know, outreach has really taken off this year, so I'm really excited about that. Next week, we have our quarterly outreach meeting on 8/12. And to give you an idea of the outreach team, we will pull together about 55 leaders in outreach that are all leading different teams in Arlington on the outreach team. So good things are happening in outreach. We'll go ahead and head over to the next slide, please. Blue Families, Josh said he had to step off, so I'll go ahead and give his update. Next slide. They are at 75,000 postcards so far. Remember a couple months ago, we set a goal of writing 100,000. We're at 75,000. I know I'm preaching to the choir when I say this, but we have one of the most active Democratic committees in the country. It's going to be the folks that are right here on this call that will make a mighty difference in the outcome of the election. If you haven't written any postcards yet, now is the time to do it. Let's get over 100,000 and let's put Arlington on the map. Just a heads up, 600,000 people in North Carolina are about to be removed from the roll. So now more than ever, we need your help with this postcard effort. If you want to learn more, please check out the Facebook page. You can find it by going to the Arlington Democrats page and looking for Blue Families. Next slide, please. All right, I'm going to kick it over to Meredith, and she's going to give us some updates on business and labor.
I actually think Meredith had to attend her son's birthday party tonight.
Yeah, Jill, this is Eric. Meredith asked me at least to present on the business side, and I think someone else is going to be presenting on the labor side. So I think if we go to the next slide. Yes. The business outreach group is planning a series of Zoom meetings presented by Biden's surrogates to discuss his plans to build back better as they relate to business. We're working with the campaign to identify surrogates to speak for Biden to the Arlington community. Our first meeting will be led by Charnel Herring, who represents the 46th district in the Virginia House of Delegates in the Alexandria Fairfax area. She will speak to Biden's plans for economic recovery, small business, and workers. We are expecting to hold this within the next week or two. We'd like to invite everybody to attend and invite all your friends. We think this is an important discussion. It will be the first, as I say, of a series. And we believe very strongly that building a more resilient, economic and business-friendly community in Arlington is in our best interest. So everything hangs in a balance on voting for Biden next November. Again, we hope we can broaden our outreach to everybody and invite everybody to attend. Keep an eye on the calendar.
Hey everybody, it's Keith Willis, the chair of the Arlington Dems Labor Caucus. We have a couple things coming up. I appreciate the vote on the Frontline Workers Bill of Rights letter earlier. Really appreciate your support on that. And we're just in the final throes of finalizing a forum. We're going to have a virtual forum we're going to have on August 13th at 6 p.m. We've got some grocery store workers, healthcare workers, educators, and some arts workers that we're going to hear from about what they're experiencing working during this pandemic. And we invite you all to be on there. There will be a link in the Arlington Dems calendar. Thank you.
Thank you to Keith and Eric. Great job as always. The Labor Caucus meets every Thursday. I invite you to join us if you're free. We can go ahead and head over to the next slide. We're going to talk a little bit about some of our caucuses. There's a list of some of the caucuses that are launched. If you do, for some reason, have free time, please join a caucus. Help us support these issue and identity-based groups. Next slide, please. We're going to go on to the AAPI update. Someone in the last call asked what AAPI means. It's the Asian American and Pacific Islander Caucus. Their next meeting is going to be on 8/16 at 2 p.m. You can reach them by sending a quick email, aapicaucus@arlingtondemocrats.org. We'll go to the next slide. And as that's transitioning, I just want to publicly say how very proud I am of all of the caucus leaders. They are all doing really incredible work. So I wanted to take a quick moment to recognize all that hard work. They're focused on two things through the election. As you can see, they are really doing a tremendous amount of census outreach. They have several partners. And then concurrently, they're also working on general election and get out the vote efforts. A couple changes in the AAPI caucus. Chris DeRosa will be transitioning into as a member. I just want to take this opportunity to also thank you, Chris, for all of the hard work that you did getting this caucus off the ground. It's greatly appreciated. Sangeeta's workload has increased as a result of having to take on more responsibility at work. So she's going to pause until September. But thankfully, we do have Annie Yoon stepping up as a co-chair. So thank you, Annie. They are working on putting together an event on COVID and healthcare. They are always looking for partnership opportunities with other AAPI organizations, like I mentioned. And they meet the third Sunday of every month at 2 o'clock. Please feel free to join the AAPI caucus on Facebook. Next slide, please. At last month's meeting, we talked about the Black Caucus getting kicked off. I'm really excited to announce that we have 3 meetings, or 3 events, I should say. The next caucus meeting is going to be on the 11th at 6 p.m. There's our email address. You can go ahead and head over to the next slide where we're going to talk about a forum that we're putting together on digital equity, and more specifically, municipal broadband and broadband access here in Arlington. Stay tuned, save the date. That's going to happen on August 19th at 6:30 p.m. Next slide, please. Next thing that we're working on is a back to school drive for Drew Elementary School. This is really important. It's going to happen from August 24th to September 8th. There is a list of all the things that we're collecting. It's basic school supplies. So the next time that you are at Target or at the grocery store, please consider picking up some of these items for kids and families that really need it. Next slide, please. The next thing that we're working on is something called We Vote Safe. It's going to be a partnership that we formed with the Black Caucus at DPVA. And it is a nonpartisan statewide organization that helps voters of color vote. You can scan the QR code to get more information, but essentially, we're going to have absentee ballots all across Arlington at different businesses that people can pick up. Next slide, please. Awesome. We're going to transition over into the Disabilities Caucus. They had their kickoff meeting and an introductory meeting coming up on 8/14 at 7 p.m. There are the email addresses of the caucus leaders. I wanted to take a quick moment to read their mission statement. The mission of the Arlington Democrats Disability Caucus is to represent the local disability community increase awareness within Arlington Democrats of disability issues, and encourage both nonpartisan civic engagement and democratic goals within the local and state disability community. So if that sounds good, please join our friends at the Disability Caucus. You can head over to the next slide. They are working on, or not working on, they are celebrating 30 years of the ADA being passed. It's incredible legislation. They're working on putting together a forum to talk about all the good things that have come out of that legislation. So stay tuned. Great things happening in the Disabilities Caucus. Next slide, please. Interfaith, I'll go ahead and kick it over to my friend Fatima, and she will tell us about all things interfaith.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Wow, it's hard. Those are hard acts to follow. Well, Interfaith has a lot going on too. Let's see. Our next meeting, first of all, I want to announce that we have weekly meetings. All of our meetings are on Sundays at 1 o'clock. Our next meeting is going to be on August 16th because we're going to be very busy, this coming weekend, doing the Weekend of Action. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're going to be participating, as I said, in the Weekend of Action. I will be mobilizing a couple of area interfaith organizations for voter registration. I just had a really terrific meeting this afternoon with one of them called Jamaat, which is one I've been involved with for quite some time. And it's an interfaith organization. It's a rapid response team that is they're very, very enthusiastic and very interested in working on activities relating to the upcoming election. And one of the things that they really want to work on is voter registration. They also expressed an interest in working on writing postcards and letters and doing phone banking. So I'll be mobilizing them after the Weekend of Action on those activities as well. Concurrent with the Weekend of Action, we're also organizing an AFAC food donation event for Eid all through August, and the kickoff will be next weekend. So the way we're going to do it this year, in previous years, for the first two Eid celebrations, we had the AFAC food donations happen at the same time as the celebration. This year's a little different for obvious reasons. So we're going to start the AFAC food donation for Eid a little bit early, give people a little more time to make their donations all through the month. And I'll be getting to the Eid celebration at the end of my presentation. So that's going to be going on as well. Secondly, I'll be mobilizing area interfaith organizations. I already mentioned that. Okay, the letter, postcard writing, phone banks. Our next issues forum, based on the feedback we got from our first issues forum, we got a lot of feedback, and the most important topic came out to be what people wanted to see our next forum done on was the survey results said that they want us to do one on voter suppression. So this will be the second in the series, on our series of issues forums, and look out for that in September, October. That's in process right now. Okay, going on to the big event, the big enchilada, or whatever. We won't be serving enchiladas at the Eid celebration, but I think whatever is there is going to be something you guys will like. We're going on to our third annual Interfaith Eid celebration, and it's going to be on August 30th. Now, why so late, even though Eid was last weekend? A couple of things. As you know, things have been going back and forth in terms of, safety, perceived safety, about having this done in person. And we really, really wanted to, we really wanted to do this in person. So we kind of held out. We thought, okay, well, we'll just move it a little bit and see if we can do this in person. And, at the end of it, we all just decided, we don't think this is going to work. The safety of all of our participants comes first. And as a result, We're still going to keep the August 30th date, but it's going to be virtual. We are going to organize it a little bit differently. Instead of having everyone show up at the same time, we are going to provide the annual, the meal as we usually do, but it'll be individually portioned. We're going to have goodie bags and have it available for pickup on sort of on a rolling schedule, touchless pickup. So, and then we will have all of the content that we usually do, or at least some of it, online. So, we do what we can under the present circumstances. So, finally, oh yeah, and we'll also we're going to be participating in the annual Unity Walk, which takes place this year on September 13th, and like most other events lately, it has had to move to a virtual environment. We will be having a resource table there to help, get people registered to vote, and that's it. It's sponsored by the Interfaith Council of DC, and I think it's going to be a great voter registration opportunity. So I think that's it. I mentioned that our next meeting, we have weekly meetings. The next meeting is 8/16 at 1 o'clock. We invite any volunteers to join our team. Things are really picking up this year, and please join, and engage with our Facebook group page. We have almost, I think at last count, we had 180 members, so it's growing. Thank you.
No,
And I hand it back to Mike.
Thank you, Fatima. I wanted to take a quick second to just celebrate you and Alexandra for the incredible work that you're doing in Interfaith. So thank you so much. Keep up the great work. We'll go on to the next slide, please. All right, Latino Caucus. Next slide. They had a very successful roundtable last week with Delegate Lopez, and which I saw on the call tonight, and Delegate Guzman. I also saw both of our school board candidates on there. I saw some county board members. So thank you all for supporting that. If you didn't get to catch it, feel free to check out the Facebook group. You can watch the replay. As mentioned, they will also be participating in the Weekend of Action. It's not too late to join us. We are specifically looking for Spanish-speaking volunteers to help out with the Latino Caucus. So if you're interested in that, you can find them on Facebook or Latino Caucus at arlingtondemocrats.org. We can head over to the next slide, please. All right, Milvets, guess what? They're doing something for Weekend of Action too. We can head over to the next slide. Their next meeting is gonna be on 8/22 at 10 a.m. Please join us. They are having a food drive to help out AFAC this Saturday at 11 a.m. So please wear Democratic themed clothing for great pictures and donate food for AFAC. We will also have a voter registration table there as well. If you're interested in learning more about what Milvets do and their mission, please join their Facebook group or send them an email. We can go to the next slide, please. All right, the Women's Caucus, they had their first meeting. We can go to the next slide. That was actually last night. So I'll just kind of read the top half of their mission statement so you can understand a little bit about why they exist. As you can see, there's an X in place of the E, and we learned that that is the most inclusive way to express a women's caucus. So the mission of the Arlington Democrats Women's Caucus is to unite the women of Arlington in support of the Democratic Committee to encourage full and equal participation of women in the committee and to raise awareness of women's issues in the Commonwealth and around the Arlington Democratic Committee. So that's all I got for outreach. Thank you, Jill. I'll pass it back over to you.
That's all. That's a ton. I can't tell you how much joy I get just listening to all of the terrific outreach updates. Y'all know that I am a precinct operations person at heart. I grew up in precinct ops, precinct captains. You are my peeps. But just to see how outreach has grown over the past year or so really is so heartening. So thank you, Mike. Thank you to the 55 leaders across all the various caucuses who are making this happen. There are so many ways to engage with the Arlington Democrats. I am sure that one of those meetings that Mike just described is going to be right for you. So please get involved. If you think that we need a caucus that you don't see and you'd like to start it, talk to Mike, talk to Declan, talk to the outreach team, and we'll get that underway, because we really do want to meet people where they are. We want to be present in the moment. The caucuses are all about that, and I just want to thank all of outreach leadership and you in particular, Mike, for making it happen. Moving us right along to another great leader, I'm going to turn things over to Steve Baker and Rose Fabia to tell us what's happening in Beyond Arlington.
Thank you, Jill. It was a tough call following outreach. They're doing so much great work. Mike, you're amazing, and everybody on your team, you guys are fantastic. Like Jill says, it's about meeting people where they are and making sure they are welcome to participate in all the many great things we do. Hopefully one of those things is Beyond Arlington, and I will implore you that with no canvassing for the foreseeable future, probably for 2020, phone calls and texting are the only way that we can have direct conversations with voters. With 89 days to go, we know turnout is going to be high for both parties, so it terrifies me to think of anything but the best thing happening on election day, and we absolutely can't avoid that or can't do the things we want to do without your help. So I hope you will join us on our Tuesday and Thursday phone banks. Next slide, please. You can sign up for these phone banks through our weekly email or through our Facebook page. If you're not on our email list, you can go to the Arlington Dems website, go to volunteers, and sign up for the email there. We have a Zoom call every Tuesday and Thursday to get new volunteers set up with an action ID, get them started on the phone banks, answer any question about the candidates. We're calling currently for our Virginia congressional races, and we'll continue to call for 1 or 2 Senate races, flippable Senate races. We were previously working with Organizing Together 2020. They have kind of folded their operation into the various state coordinated campaigns. So we're trying to chase down where the next texting opportunity is going to be. Next. We are currently phone banking for our contested incumbents, recently elected incumbents. We love Jennifer Wexton too. We feel that her seat is safer than Abigail Nolaine, so we're calling for Abigail Nolaine right now. And we recently had an event with Indivisible Waterfront with Dr. Cameron Webb, and our really exciting candidate from the 5th District. We're really excited to help him as well. If we can get enough of you folks on the phones, be happy to help Qasim Rashid and some other candidates in Virginia, or maybe pick up another Senate race. But we really do need to build our volunteer capacity and get people on the phone. So please, if you can, sign up for one of our phone bank events or pass the word on to other folks who might. I will drop our link in the chat. And Rose, do you have anything to add to that? Do you want to tell folks about some of the other things we're doing, or how the Cameron Webb call went?
We have lost Rose.
All right. If not, Jill, I will turn it back to you, and thank everyone so much for all your help.
Great, thanks, Steve. We're going to move things right along to our most important partner in the county, the Arlington Young Democrats. They absolutely brought it for the special election, and they're keeping it up. So over to you guys. I'm not sure if it's Mike, Ian, or Dan.
It's me. Sorry, I apologize. We can go to the next slide. All right, we had an incredible roundtable that we co-hosted with Arlington Dems a couple weeks ago. As you know, the special session is right around the corner. So if you didn't catch that, you can catch the replay on our Facebook page. We had some incredible speakers and incredible content covered. Next slide, please. All right, awesome. This Friday, we will be hosting a tribute to John Lewis. So if you have not seen the documentary Good Trouble featuring John Lewis's life, this would be an incredible opportunity for you to watch it and learn about all the good work that he did. There will be a lot of learning. It will be a great time. And then following the film, we will be doing a guided discussion to kind of discuss our learnings and maybe how we can power that into action. At this time, I am going to kick it over to our campaigns director. He's going to talk to us a little bit about our plan for campaigns this season. Ian?
Hello, how's it going, everybody? So since our last time, let's see, I think it's the next slide, right? Cool. Since the last time we met, AYD has approved a campaigns plan. Like Steve was saying earlier, our real best options this year are phone calls and text banking, so that is what we plan. We have approved a budget that we're going to spend both to promote our own phone banking and text banking events, but also to focus on getting out the vote among young voters across Virginia. Let's see, we've agreed we're going to have weekly campaign events in September, and we're planning an additional event for right after the Democratic National Convention. And we've agreed to focus on our events on 3 races in Virginia and 3 races outside of Virginia. The races in Virginia are the 2nd, the 5th, and the 7th. In addition, we plan on helping the joint campaign in Arlington, getting out the vote here. It's crucial to make sure that Mark Warner and Joe Biden win in Virginia, get those margins up here. And then outside of Virginia, we plan on making calls or texts for the North Carolina, Arizona, and Maine Senate races. Additionally, recently we had a campaigns pump up just to introduce our members to the plan, and we had several people who were brand new to Arlington Young Democrats show up, who are fired up to make a difference this year, and we're really excited to hit the campaigns trail soon.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, never mind. Yeah, these are just some upcoming Young Democrats events. There'll be opportunities both with the Virginia Young Democrats and with Arlington Young Democrats for our members to get involved.
All right, that's a lot of activity. Thank you very much, AYD, for all that terrific work. All right, thanks for hanging in there, folks. Appreciate it. We are on to our very short county board update, and I think our county board chair, Libby Garvey, has joined us, and she's going to provide a few remarks in light of the fact that we're a blockbuster meeting tonight. So, Libby, I think everyone's going to appreciate the brevity. Go ahead. Did we lose her, or is she on mute?
Sorry, should know that by now. Thank you so much, Jill. That's quite a picture. I think it says something like COVID what are you talking about? Anyway, thanks so much. We had a little glitch, no slideshow, but I know everybody's been around for a long time. This is a late meeting, so I won't take up too much of your time. Things are really busy on the county board side, just as they are with you all. The energy in this room, virtual room, is tremendous. It's wonderful to see. I'll give you a real quick COVID update, which, you know, probably most people sort of know. You know, the cases of COVID, we're just kind of going along like this. So the good news is we're not spiking. The bad news is we are not going down. So we're just keeping things kind of floating along with some little upticks at time. And of course, I'm sure you're seeing the news of other places where it's going up quite a lot, and pictures of lots of young people gathering, particularly around some bars on sidewalks. So we're trying to figure out what we can do. Our tools are really limited. I mean, people are always, they think I've got a magic wand and that, you know, as chair of the board, I can say like everybody has to stay inside or something. I can't do that. Can't even tell people they have to wear masks, really. But we can, we did pass an ordinance so that we can have our police telling people they need to at least stay separate on the sidewalk in certain places where we put signs, and that's going to be right outside certain establishments where we've been noticing lots and lots of young people gathering. That will be enforced once we get the signs up. That's probably going to be a couple of weeks. So we'll see what happens there. I've heard a rumor that the District of Columbia may be doing a curfew on bars, closing at 10 at night. And apparently Montgomery County has done that. If DC does that, we will be looking at things very closely here, because that could be not good for us at all. Most people in Arlington are being great about the distancing and the mask wearing, but a few are not. And particularly when people get relaxed and they have a fair amount of alcohol and it's late at night, they get even more and more relaxed, and all of those kind of precautions go out the window. And this COVID virus is an absolute predator and waiting for all of those little mistakes people make to infect more people. You know, our struggles are to make sure, and you guys are working on it too, people got houses to stay in, a roof over their heads. We're doing a lot on trying to prevent evictions and working closely with the courts and with the Legal Aid Society. And with the governor, hopefully he's going to put another restriction on evictions. We're working hard on food to make sure that everybody's got food, and on health to make sure we've got good testing, good tracing, and people have health care when they need it. Testing is actually controlled by the state. We don't have all that much control over it, and that is not the greatest state. We're really subject to what's going on in the country as a whole, doing our best to step up on our own, but find ourselves, it's been an interesting experience as chair of the board to kind of be, you know, on the, we're having to negotiate with like other countries and other whole states for things like testing and PPE, and that's not a good place to be, but that's where we are. I'm just about out of the time I said I would take. We are doing a lot of work in the equity realm. I'm sure people are watching that. We've set up a review of our police practices and policies, and I'm really excited about that. There's going to be a report out this fall. Our police chief is retiring, and so we will be having a search for a new police chief, and we will be folding in the work with the community on that hire, which the manager will make. Internally, we're doing the Government Alliance on Race and Equity. The board members spent about 6 hours in the last couple of days working on that area, which was really exciting, really be able to focus on things. And then finally, we are hoping in the fall, and I'll let you know, Jill, when we know exactly what that's going to be, to have some real good roundtable conversations in the community about race and equity, and start talking about things like, how are we going to name buildings and roads, and are we going to take the logo down that we've got now? We're getting all kinds of requests for a lot of changes like that, and I think it's important to have a good community conversation about it, think about it. What about the history? We need to understand our history, and then we need to figure out what is it we want to honor and how are we going to do that. So lots going on. Thank you all for your energy. I hope everybody cover your faces when you're out, stay distanced, wash your hands. Anybody's got any questions, I'm just email, text, phone call away. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Libby. We appreciate that update and all of the hard work that you're doing on the county board. I think we have one last section in our agenda. Really briefly, we talked about a lot of events. One item that we didn't mention that I wanted to make sure was on your calendars is we are doing a virtual morning mug on August 22nd, during which we're going to talk about the one of the other items that is going to appear on the November ballot, though we suspect that it's going to be far less controversial than the redistricting constitutional amendment. That is the bond referendum related to Arlington's capital improvement plan. This is not a topic that maybe everyone knows about, so we thought it would be helpful to have an educational session, and we're delighted that two of Libby's colleagues, Takis Karantanis and Matt DeFerranti, will be joining us to talk a bit about what that bond referendum is all about. Stay tuned, because we will be voting next month on our position with respect to that bond referendum, which I do not expect to be as potentially contentious as this month's vote was. And also just to give folks a heads up, there's a third thing that was going to appear on our ballots in November, which is a constitutional amendment on property tax rebates for disabled military veterans. And so that is something that we'll also be talking about at next month's meeting. Again, not something that we expect to be controversial, but we, in particular with respect to the capital improvement plan, we did want to make sure we had this educational opportunity. Okay, so I believe that brings us to the end of our agenda. I want to thank everybody for hanging tight with us. We appreciate it. I believe that we have the results from the redistricting vote. I'm gonna ask Maggie to help me out here in terms of getting them posted. I don't know if Maggie, if you're on mute. Okay.
Sorry, I was on mute. They're now in the chat.
All right, so I think we're looking at pretty similar results to what we saw with respect to steering. Strong support for the Arlington Democrats to take a position with 68.7% of the vote. And then with respect to what that position should be, 78% of the voters said we should oppose the proposed amendment. So that is what will appear on Arlington sample ballot, Democratic sample ballot this November. Again, I want to thank everyone for participating in the discussion. I think it was an important one. I want to remind everyone again that we are all good Democrats and that we are all in the fight of our lives to retake the White House and restore sanity to our country. I hope that you will join us in that fight. There are so many ways to get involved, as you heard here tonight. Let us go out and make some good trouble this weekend during our weekend of action honoring Representative Lewis and throughout this election season to November. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. That concludes our meeting, and I wish everyone a really excellent evening. Take
Can
care.
you say the results again, Jill?
Sure, they're in the chat.
They're in the chat? Okay.
Yeah, and I'm sure they'll be all over Facebook momentarily.
So where in the chat?
So again, it is take a position, yes, 68.7%, and the position should be no, should be oppose the amendment with 78% of the vote.
Numbers. Well, there it is. Okay, thank you.
Screenshots everywhere.
Right. All right. I'm shutting down the presentation so I can see all of your lovely faces, and I hope you have a great evening.
See everybody.
Good night, everybody.